welcome to it. This is the Nosey Liberal. My name is Tom Reynolds. We are live. We are alive. Yes, I am actually okay. Um, my apologies. Let me get the screen straightened out for you to see me. Hello. Hello. My apologies. I think I'm wearing the same shirt as we last spoke. I did do laundry, over the weekend, for those interested. Um, I have been dealing with Hi, Jim. I have been dealing with mental illness, which is not fun for anybody, but mine has been depression, and I have been finding it hard to do things. And I have been working on it, and 2 times a week with my therapist, and I think I'm, I think I'm getting better. I see a light at the end of the tunnel. The big problem has been things have been a little difficult, and I'm getting through it. Little late payments here and there, like we need money for. I thought we'd be up a little on the channel by now, with the subscribers we have, because we're over 1,000. But we can't quite monetize yet. So I'm curious at what to do with that because I want to monetize and I want to um get the channel and get everything going so it can pay for itself. But here we are, no monetization yet. So if you feel the inkling and wish to, you can go to the FI Nation Patreon page. And I'm told our FYNation.com website has been acting really funky. I'm gonna be upgrading all of that tonight. So my apologies for that. For those listening on TuneIn or any watching on Stitch, welcome. We're here. We're live. It's a Tuesday, and I'm glad you're here. So there's that. If you're messaging me on my Facebook channel, I cannot see the messages. So it's a flaw with the software that we have. Don't ask me why. I don't get it. But I can't see the messages. So if you want to go to the YouTube, increase our views and FY Nation and go into the chat. Jim is there moderating, and you can check out the chat that way. So we haven't been here in a while, and the last we left was the abortion talk, and I want to talk about that a little bit, because with the protesters, at the SCOTUS protesting way of talking about it. So we're going to talk about that. Um, and Jimmy, you don't have to worry about it. I know your situation, but thank you for the thought. You being here is helpful to the views, so I appreciate that. So there's that. I just got to get more regular. Like when you clean clean out your colon, you got to get regular. I got to be more regular. So if you want to participate, the YouTube is the place to be. And we have a little conversation going on and go from there and check out the program that way. But that being said, we're going to talk about get out the vote, and we're going to talk about the Republicans and what they're doing and the Democrats and what they're doing. We'll talk about the uh, Taco Bell drama. Yes, there is drama at Taco Bell for drive-throughs, and we'll talk about a whole bunch of stuff. So I hope you stay with me for the 2 hours. We are doing 2 hours today. I'm gonna make it a goal to do 2 hours every day because I think that's what you guys deserve, or Monday through Friday, and barring no appointments. But let's get to this first story, shall we? From Ross' story, and I really gotta say, um, I love this. Um, I really love this story. Um, and this is about getting out the vote. And this is what the Democratic Party needs to do. The black delegation in Florida legislature and community activists are doubling down on efforts to empower Floridians to vote during the upcoming elections, with a bunch of launch of a campaign that pushes back against lawmakers' policies from the Republican side. Hi, Jen. How are you? Welcome to the chat. And the Florida Legislative Black Caucus will host a Stay Woke, Go Vote event on May 24th, first to launch the campaign. They also have started an online petition and text campaign to get Floridians in the process, right? That's what we're looking for. We are looking for Florida, especially, to vote Ron DeSantis. I would love nothing more to see Ron DeSantis lose, and beat by Charlie Crist. I'm not a Charlie Crist fan. He is way too changey for me, and coming from a former conservative, I know how that sounds, right? So I get that, but to me, his changing parties is like Bloomberg changing parties. It seems suspect, and I have issues with that. You have to have a natural progression, and maybe they did. Maybe I'm judging them, but I'm told blue no matter who. So here we are, and stay woke, go vote is a great little slogan because it'll piss off every Republican that you can find. And it's what the Black Caucus is what the Republicans should be getting against the Democrats, and the Democratic Party should be doing. They should be going after getting more African Americans and minorities out to the polls, reminding them that the Democratic Party is actually here for them, and reminding them that, you get what you get with the Republicans. More CRT, more, I don't know, don't say gay, more Taco Bell drag queen hate. You get that from the Republicans. You get a meltdown. And so, and you get crazy. You get the QAnon. And you don't get that with the Democratic Party. So the Florida groups need to get up, which they're doing, stand up, and really move the gauntlet. And I'm glad to see that they're doing this because it's vitally important. I don't necessarily think that they're going to get Charlie Crist into elected office, but at the very least, give Ron DeSantis a run for his money. Don't make that red wave so surfable. He shouldn't have an easy glide into the governor's mansion. He should not be, I don't know, welcomed with open arms. That would be nice. It would be really nice to see if we could see somebody like Ron DeSantis go down in flames of misery and defeat. I want that. I'm not downing on the electorate. I think the electorate. I would love to see the Black Caucus in Florida get the electorate out there to get out the vote and defeat Ron DeSantis. And defeat him handedly. Remember, it was black women who got, what's his name? The Alabama senator. I can't remember his name. In Alabama. The Alabama senator now. Cannot remember his name to save my life. But he was the Democratic senator who ran, and got elected in the special election thanks to strong black women who came out and vote. People, by the way, who we have noted on this show time and time again, that the Republican Party is afraid of. The Republican Party is terrified of strong black women. And any woman who is, I don't know, not wearing a beehive burqa like the Taliban want now. Pick any woman you can find, and you will see that the Republican Party is terrified of them. That's why they have to create rumors like they're eating babies in the basement of a non-existent place in a pizzeria, and they are drinking the blood of the babies and having orgies and everything else. That sounds more like Madison Garthon than anybody, if you're going to ask me. But they get all riled up and they believe this shit. And we, on the other hand, on the Democratic side, have to be forced to stand up for logic and reason and wonder how things work that people like Ron DeSantis, Mr. Ban Math Books, gets elected in the first place. Notice there are no actual policies from the Republican side. Notice they are not bringing in anything of relative use to body politic. Notice how it's a continual drumbeat of social divisive issues. So they can say, well, those Democrats, they just a bunch of baby killers. You know, and that's how it goes. They wanna change up the sexes so they can groom them. And other nonsense. And it's these people who get away with the most damage, being the loudest, and getting apparently the biggest donors. So it's like a great thing to see from Ross' story that we have, I don't know, Florida delegation of Black Caucus members in the Democratic Party rising up for what they believe in, doing exactly what I've been saying the Democratic Party needed to do. The Democratic Party needed to, do something other than silent grin as people on the left side of it. Notice how we don't have James O'Keefe types. The closest you can get to, and I hate saying this because he's legitimate. He's a legitimate documentarian, but the closest you could get to that fantasy cradle robbing bullshit is Michael Moore. And the only reason I can say Michael Moore is like James O'Keefe is because he does a great editing job and narrative job of his documentaries. Oh, Tom, wake up! His documentaries. Let's learn how to talk. First grade English here. His documentaries are edited and made to be entertaining. The only typical way you get good stuff like that from documentaries is, now I got to practice saying the word documentaries. I feel like Jesse Lee Peterson in a English class. Jesus Christ. So now you have Michael Moore, who is an actual legitimate filmmaker. He's not Denise D'Souza, who makes boring documentaries and just red baits and goes to the sycophantic level. Or James O'Keefe. I mean, Denise D'Souza, I guess, is the guy who is most likely to be a true Michael Moore on the right type of guy. But it, even his stuff, bullshit. They got to make it up. See, the Democratic Party and the Democratic side, for the most part, has facts, logic, reason all on its side. Like, we actually like to have those things when we deal with, I don't know, candidates and the body politic and the rule of law. We like to know that the black voters, the African Americans out there, are going to stand up for what is right and just, and clearly racist on the Republican side. Now, I'm not going to go as far as Joe Biden and say, because it's a silly ass thing to say, well, if you're black, you got to vote Democratic. I will go up to the line and say, why aren't you voting Democratic? Is that tax cut that big that you feel it necessary to vote for the other side, the Republican side, the conservatives, who
I'm Dr. Anthony Lazowitz, and this is Climate Connections. Jane McCurry grew up in Detroit, the Motor City.
My parents worked for the auto industry. They both worked for Ford. The auto industry is the lifeblood of a lot of the people there.
But the industry is changing.
Electrification is happening. The industry is moving really quickly toward cleaner vehicles.
McCurry is executive director of Clean Fuels Michigan. The nonprofit is advocating that the state invest in the transition to electric vehicles, so Michigan and its workforce are not left behind. She says that financial incentives can help entice companies to locate EV and battery manufacturing facilities in the state. For example, General Motors recently announced it will invest $7 billion at 4 EV and battery production facilities in Michigan. The commitment came after state authorities developed a tax incentive package for the company worth more than $800 million. This investment is expected to create 4,000 new jobs.
And so having those incentives on the table is really important to make sure that Michigan is winning those jobs.
McCurry says investing in the EV industry will pay off for the state's workforce and help Michigan secure its role in the auto industry's future. Climate Connections is produced by the Yale Center for Environmental Communication. To hear more stories like this, visit climateconnections.org.
Okay, we are back. It helps if I unmute when I start to talk because then you can hear me talk. Isn't that a lovely thing? We're live at Nosey Liberal. Today is the 10th of May, and I hope you're doing well. I hope all is well. I'm doing okay considering fighting off depression, and it is what it is. We're live, and I want to touch on this a little bit more because it's important that we go through these things. Jim is right when he points out in the chat the Soylent Green are people type of thing. The Republican Party are very capable of believing in fantasy land and on a 24/7 regular basis. They are able to believe in this fantasy island, nonsensical rumor mill, and then somehow, as if it weren't a fluke, gets on the Fox News. Right? So it like always is like this Well, here we have the rumor that started on Breitbart, that went to Newsmax, that headed over to Fox News. And then maybe on their top rated, the 5 or Tucker Carlson Tonight, they'll get a mention. And then they'll get a larger mention. And then it'll just blow up. And then somehow this rumor, this bullshit quack story that they've made up has turned into truth. Because you tell a lie enough times, it becomes the truth. And the narrative that we need to be pushing at this point is that JFK ain't gonna show up. Like Jim says, he's definitely coming, but he's late. No, I'm sorry, my friends. And by the way, I'm all for the second coming, or like of Christ, or anybody for that matter. If you want to come back from the dead and be zombified, I'm all for that. I will be the first person to try and figure out how to use a gun and chase your ass down. So I'm there for that. A little bit of an adventure. What I cannot digest and understand is this gutless, crazed nonsense where he's gonna appear at his father's place of assassination? How does that make sense? I mean, you had me at Zombie JFK Jr., where you lost me. But if we're gonna dive deep into it, why not Kennebunkport or it's Maine, right? That's the Bush's place. But why not Maine? Why not Maryland and Boston? Why does it have to be him showing up in Dallas where his daddy got shot? It makes no sense. And it's hard to like be on the side of normalcy, decency, and integrity when you're dealing with complete and utter nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. Like taking a clip that somebody cut up on the internet and shows Joe Biden looking for somebody clearly, but makes it out as if he is meandering and not know where he is, because that fits the Joe Biden is senile narrative that they're going with on Fox News for that night. Like and then in the same newscast, usually Tucker Carlson, but in the same newscast, you will have the Republican Party right there just saying Joe Biden and Hunter Biden are colluding with the laptop and the crack cocaine and the this and the that and the GBGBs. I mean, they got a laundry list. I mean, and this was the same for Barack Obama too. Remember, Barack Obama was either on the ball and trading guns down in Mexico, or he was getting people killed in Benghazi, along with Hillary Clinton, because of his poor leadership. They never had a story that, and this is what we're up against, right? The stories don't even add up for the person they're trying to mold into that being. But then you have Ronald Reagan. You have the Reaganification of an angel. He has been Reaganified. Reaganified? Not really a word, but we'll go with it. He's been just made out to be the second coming of Christ. And this wonderful man who did no wrong. Yet there were indictments. There was the Iran-Contra deal. There was the airline strike that he didn't aircraft controller strike that he did not handle well. You could go down the list with Ronald Reagan and point out all the things that he did wrong. That does not make him this glorious angel coming from the city down the hill from wherever and making it just right for all to see. Instead, what you have is a man who is as flawed as Donald Trump. But at least the difference between him and Donald Trump was Ronald Reagan thinks he meant well. Donald Trump knows he doesn't mean well. See how that goes? So there's that. Oh, Lord. So, we are back and we're live today. And I want to play this clip from a couple weeks ago. It's worth playing because in the insanity of the Republican Party, it's nice to be reminded of what the Democratic Party stands for and what we try to get to. And it's nice to be able to have somebody actually say it in the House of Representatives, and that's Ted Lieu. And I could just commend him for this, because this is still piercing to me. But somebody pointed this out, and it didn't get more coverage. And it should have gotten more coverage. In fact, it should be played on all the liberal networks all the time. And it's upsetting that instead, let's see if we can find it real quick. Just bear with me. Here we go. So Ted Lieu, representative from California, is talking about GOP orgs.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2005. That was the day United Airlines got the A-OK to ditch its pension obligations in federal bankruptcy court. Workers were dragged through years of employee ownership schemes, massive layoffs and concessions, and the gambling away of hard-earned pensions on the stock market. Then in 2002, United filed bankruptcy. Many asked, how could this happen to an airline owned by its workers? By 2005, creditors like Citigroup and JP Morgan were fully in control. Employee ownership had meant trading billions of dollars in deep wage cuts and givebacks for stock ownership and a couple of seats on the board. Controlling interest meant a 6-year no-strike pledge, the slashing of tens of thousands of jobs, and massive outsourcing. By 2005, the stock was worthless. Then United moved to weasel out of union contracts just 24 hours after the court ruled on the pension default. Some 130,000 pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, and ground service workers found their employee stock ownership plans empty. United executives turned billions of dollars over to the federal government, who then administered what was left through the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. In most cases, those pensions were slashed in half, and monthly retiree health insurance costs exploded by 700%. One pilot stated, "I call it legalized crime. I lost almost all my United stock value in the bankruptcy, and here's another part of the retirement I was promised that is gone." Where does it end? You feel brutalized by the system. Somehow, the $6 million in benefits then CEO Glenn Tilton received wasn't affected by the default. Now that United is swimming in hundreds of millions in profit, many retirees have demanded the restoration of their original pension plan.
Insight Daily Radio. Conversations with today's most influential authors, actors, musicians, artists, and creative minds. Raina Goebel is an expert on student loan debt. The newly revised second edition of her book, Cliff Notes Graduation Debt, How to Manage Student Loans and Live Your Life, has just been released. We spoke with her about strategies for graduates who are faced with student loan debt.
The typical expectation for when you have to start payments is 6 months after graduation. Right about now, the December graduates are starting their repayment, and the May graduates can start now as far as thinking, okay, how much should I be setting aside for my student loans? And the best way to do that is to call your servicers, which you can find the information on the National Student Loan Data System, or to use the calculators from the Federal Financial Aid website. It is very typical to have over 10 loans because even if you had one loan per semester, that's 8 loans by itself. Then you have a master's if you have a master's, and more than likely, most borrowers will have subsidized and unsubsidized loans at least in one semester. So if you think about that, it's so typical to have 10 loans. In fact, it can also be very typical to have 20 loans or 25 loans. And that's why it's very important that you're keeping track of everything.
That's Raina Goebel, author of the newly revised second edition of Cliff Notes, Graduation Debt, How to Manage Student Loans and Live Your Life. There's more online. Inside Daily Radio.
Hey, hello. Welcome back to the program. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you're here with us. Thank you for the well wishes, Jen. I really do appreciate it coming from good loyal viewers and listeners of FRINation.com. It is really, really appreciated when loyalty shows. We are live and we are here, and we're having a show, right? So let's do it. Basically, Ted Lieu the other day really really did a good job. It's about a week or two now, and he really did a good job with dealing with the Republicans. And this is how all pundits should deal with Republicans. It should be 101 in fact, and it really aggravates me that we don't have more courageous people like that. Maybe I'm not into the right channels tuned in, but I don't see it, and it should go viral. This should have gone viral.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. President Joe Biden has done an awesome job creating jobs. He is a jobs president. Last year, 6.6 million jobs were created. In the last 14 months, we're working with congressional Democrats, 7.4 million jobs were created, the most in United States history. Democrats are building a better America for the future and for the people. What are Republicans doing? I don't know. But last week, Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn bragged about being invited to cocaine-fueled sex orgies by senior Republicans. Don't believe me? Search for Madison Cawthorn Republican Caucus on the internet. I yield back.
So that should have been enough. That should have been the starting pistol for the Democratic Party to really nail down the BS patrol that we get from this side of the Republicans. We should have a party that stands up to this and lets people know who the Democratic or the Republican Party is and how they operate. But instead, it's not viral, it's not enough, and it seems that the Republican Party is doing what the Democratic Party needs to be doing, which I don't know about you, but comes out wrong to me. Like the story again from Raw Story, is you would feel bad if it were anybody else, but Republicans are doing the Democrats' job for them. Let me repeat that again. The Republican Party is doing the job of the Democrats for them. And it should kind of frighten you. According to a report from Daily Beast, Sam Broadley and Roger Sulzberg, Republicans and conservatives in North Carolina with Senator Tom Tillis are openly boasting they want Cawthorn gone, and are connected to leaks of embarrassing photos and videos of him that have disgusted even former presidential personality Donald J. Trump. And you know, Jim, I'm okay with stooping to the Republicans' level, fighting them in the body politic, but you can't fight the QAnon conspiracy bullshit. You just gotta say it's not true, and go from there, and hope that people listen. And like the My Pillow guy that we talked about last Monday with Jeff Waldorf on the show. If you haven't seen that, it's a great episode. They are boasting, these guys, the Republican Party. They don't like the fish they caught and the one they have. They are now really just out for blood. I don't know how else to say it. Labeling the flood of embarrassing disclosures as an ever-worsening public relations train wreck, the Beast report argues the sources of coordinated stories seems clear. The attacks are coming from inside the house. So I guess he was too much on the crazy train. That I would have thought it would have been Marjorie Trader Green. I did not have Madison Cawthorn on my bingo card. I am a little dismayed at that. I honestly thought, okay, the crazy one there is Marjorie Trader Green. She is the nutbag. She is the one that the house is going to want out. They're going to dump her. But no, she is smart enough, apparently, not to talk about orgies in the House of Representatives and doing line bumps of cocaine, so they are all into it to get Cawthorn out. It's definitely a hit job, and that I'm happy to be a party to. Most of the GOP universe has come around to the line against this guy. You're seeing a full court, state-based establishment pushback against him. Get this guy out. Take him out. We're going to see if we can pull it off in 8 days. No, this is a guy that even... How are they going to frame this? Even Donald Trump, as disgusted as he's been, the presidential personality disorder, even as disgusted as he's been, was our good friend Madison Cawthorn, when the news reports endorsed him. So what are they going to say if this tidal wave of negativity goes after our friend Representative Cawthorn and does him in? Are they going to then say that the Trump endorsement doesn't mean as much as it used to? Are they going to actually say that? No. They're not going to say that. They're not going to actually say that. But if you wanted a grand conspiracy, if you ever saw one, this was it. David Wheeler, a North Carolina Democrat who runs the Fire Madison PAC, stated he and his partner have been happy to be a conduit for attacks by Republicans on Cawthorn. Again, this is how the game is played. And if they want you out, they're going to push you. And they are push hard, and they will cancel your ass. Maybe Madison Cawthorn can get a punditry job at InfoWars or Newsmax or OANN. Think maybe they like his ass there. One of those cushy punditry. They're not going to take him at Fox News because the establishment wants him out. He's too crazy. So he has to go to one of the lesser outlets, like Daily Wire. Maybe the Daily Wire will have him as a correspondent. Do you think he got the talent to be... I mean, they don't really need talent. Look at Tucker Carlson. He doesn't actually have talent. He's just a teleprompter queen. An original thought doesn't actually come out of his body. And when it did, he was talking trash about Bill O'Reilly. There are clips of that going around on the TikTok first. There's a TikTok that's going around with Tucker Carlson back in the day with the bow tie and the not so quash hair, and talking trash about Bill O'Reilly being an act. And one day he's going to get caught yelling at somebody and going off, and the act is going to be up, and the jig is going to be up, and lo and behold, look who it is now. Tucker Carlson, literally describing Tucker Carlson. He's literally describing himself. So here you have it. And Cawthorn is being pushed out. I guess they don't need him. They certainly don't want him. And they're happy to spread this shit on him. Which I'm okay with. I'm totally... Look, if you want to spread some shit, smear it all over. Smear. Just smear it. Smear the shit all over our good friend Madison Cawthorn. Look, he's going to get a nice, cushy pension and a nice job being a consultant somewhere. Somebody will have him. And he's going to be, wheeling around in his wheelchair. I shouldn't make fun of. He's going to be just fine. My ridicule aside. He's going to have that cushy pension. He's going to have that cushy insurance for the rest of his life. And if we're lucky, a Democratic person will take his seat. But we'll probably get another stooge like Republican that will back Trump no matter what, because that's what they do. And be typical Republican. The women-hating, orgy-having, cocaine-snorting bunch of wackos. I really don't understand at this point what it is to be, or why you would want to be in the Republican Party. Even Sean Hannity is, I'm a conservative. I vote Republican, but I'm a conservative. Even Sean Hannity's like, no, don't call me a Republican. And those independents are just Republicans who don't want to be identified as such. If we're being honest about the situation. And it's always good to be honest about the situation. So we're going to take a quick unsanctioned break. Um, and when we come back, we'll talk a little. Yeah, we'll schmooze and see what else is going on in the news. And then the 4 o'clock hour, we have a couple stories, and we'll head on out of here. So we'll see if we can make it to 4 o'clock. I'm a gambling man. What do you think? You think we can make it to 4 o'clock? Let's see. We'll be right back.
Insight Daily Radio. Conversations with today's most influential authors, actors, musicians, artists, and creative minds. Raina Goebel is an expert on student loan debt. The newly revised second edition of her book, Cliff Notes Graduation Debt, How to Manage Student Loans and Live Your Life, has just been released. We spoke with her about strategies for graduates who are faced with student loan debt.
The typical expectation for when you have to start payments is 6 months after graduation. Right about now, the December graduates are starting their repayment, and the May graduates can start now as far as thinking, okay, how much should I be setting aside for my student loans? And the best way to do that is to call your servicers, which you can find the information on the National Student Loan Data System, or to use the calculators from the Federal Financial Aid website. It is very typical to have over 10 loans because even if you had one loan per semester, that's 8 loans by itself. Then you have a master's if you have a master's. And more than likely, most borrowers will have subsidized and unsubsidized loans at least in one semester. So if you think about that, it's so typical to have 10 loans. In fact, it can also be very typical to have 20 loans or 25 loans. And that's why it's very important that you're keeping track of everything.
That's Raina Goebel, author of the newly revised second edition of Cliff Notes Graduation Debt, How to Manage Student Loans and Live Your Life. There's more online. InsightDailyRadio.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2005. That was the day United Airlines got the A-OK to ditch its pension obligations in federal bankruptcy court. Workers were dragged through years of employee ownership schemes, massive layoffs and concessions, and the gambling away of hard-earned pensions on the stock market. Then in 2002, United filed bankruptcy. Many asked, how could this happen to an airline owned by its workers? By 2005, creditors like Citigroup and JP Morgan were fully in control. Employee ownership had meant trading billions of dollars in deep wage cuts and givebacks for stock ownership and a couple of seats on the board. Controlling interest meant a 6-year no-strike pledge, the slashing of tens of thousands of jobs, and massive outsourcing. By 2005, the stock was worthless. Then United moved to weasel out of union contracts just 24 hours after the court ruled on the pension default. Some 130,000 pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, and ground service workers found their employee stock ownership plans empty. United executives turned billions of dollars over to the federal government, who then administered what was left through the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. In most cases, those pensions were slashed in half, and monthly retiree health insurance costs exploded by 700%. One pilot stated, "I call it legalized crime. I lost almost all my United stock value in the bankruptcy, and here's another part of the retirement I was promised that is gone." Where does it end? You feel brutalized by the system. Somehow, the $6 million in benefits then CEO Glenn Tilton received wasn't affected by the default. Now that United is swimming in hundreds of millions in profit, many retirees have demanded the restoration of their original pension plan.
And welcome back to the program. We are live, and I am here, and and I'm trying to deal with technology, and it's finicky, finicky. So yeah, um, I know what trouble it is to be a liberal host. There's no money in it, and I want to thank those who have contributed or gotten the word out or done anything that they can to really make it so uh, we can do well. Um, and it is one of those um, it's one of those things where it is frustrating that you're dealing with on a regular basis, and it really does suck that you are almost stuck uh, in a rut, asking for contributions, and like we don't have a My Pillow guy just handing out money to get his notoriety up and his pillows sold. We don't have a huge network where we can go and be pundits. We have a small group of dedicated people who are trying to do their best in a difficult situation, which is the United States. And I was watching France 24. This goes back to everything, where they were talking about the differences of governments and governance. And I really wish that we had this. And I'm going to smooth it a little down. A bit down. But their government is basically a centralized system that they have. And they have a centralized system that allows you to essentially go from province to province, territory to territory, and you're going to get the same laws. Like, you're not going to, this centralized system, if you go to Paris or Versailles, I can't say it. I'm sorry, I suck at French. If you go to wherever in France, wherever it be, the French Virgin Islands, they have those, but the islands in France that are run by the French government. If the point is, if you go there, you're not going to get treated to a hodgepodge of individual provinces and sectors and territories saying, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this way, you can't do this way, you can't do this that way. And this centralized form of government is something that I wish the founders had really thought of more succinctly. Not everything has to be centralized. You could have individual police forces and stuff like that. But there should be some things that should be dealt with in the government. Like in the business that I deal with, for instance. If I'm going to do a particular way of transacting, I need to get a license in every state that I'm going to do business in territory in the United States. So I have to, because of states' rights, I have to go through different things for different states to deal with this business. If it was centralized, I would love to fill out one governmental form. One bureau of the government knows all the data. And then I could go on my merry way. And it controls all 50 states. Like, especially dealing with financial stuff. Because when you think about it, and taxes, same way. It should be on the federal level. And I honestly am not a big one for state income tax when you could do most things with a property tax. I'll just go ahead and say it. I think that would then raise the federal income tax higher to pay for that to help the states, but that's a whole nother discussion. But I'm a liberal, and here's where you are. So you have the situation where basically you have it jumbled when it shouldn't be. Like our money, our financial system, especially, should be regulated by the Treasury, dealt with by the Treasury, and that's it. Getting into the weeds with it, and I just think it's a better system. So there's that. So, and I just countries in Europe, most European countries, the way they do things. I'm not saying I want to leave, or I'm not expatting here. I look at how they do things and run things on a foreign level. And you get more political parties, you get more debate, you get more chaos, certainly. But it makes it more interesting. And when you talk about the right wing, you have different sides of the right wing. Like in France, you have Le Pen.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2005. That was the day United Airlines got the A-OK to ditch its pension obligations in federal bankruptcy court. Workers were dragged through years of employee ownership schemes, massive layoffs and concessions, and the gambling away of hard-earned pensions on the stock market. Then in 2002, United filed bankruptcy. Many asked, how could this happen to an airline owned by its workers? By 2005, creditors like Citigroup and JP Morgan were fully in control. Employee ownership had meant trading billions of dollars in deep wage cuts and givebacks for stock ownership and a couple of seats on the board. Controlling interest meant a 6-year no-strike pledge, the slashing of tens of thousands of jobs, and massive outsourcing. By 2005, the stock was worthless. Then United moved to weasel out of union contracts just 24 hours after the court ruled on the pension default. Some 130,000 pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, and ground service workers found their employee stock ownership plans empty. United executives turned billions of dollars over to the federal government, who then administered what was left through the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. In most cases, those pensions were slashed in half, and monthly retiree health insurance costs exploded by 700%. One pilot stated, "I call it legalized crime. I lost almost all my United stock value in the bankruptcy, and here's another part of the retirement I was promised that is gone." Where does it end? You feel brutalized by the system. Somehow, the $6 million in benefits then CEO Glenn Tilton received wasn't affected by the default. Now that United is swimming in hundreds of millions in profit, many retirees have demanded the restoration of their original pension plan.
Insight Daily Radio. Conversations with today's most influential authors, actors, musicians, artists, and creative minds. Raina Goebel is an expert on student loan debt. The newly revised second edition of her book, Cliff Notes Graduation Debt, How to Manage Student Loans and Live Your Life, has just been released. We spoke with her about strategies for graduates who are faced with student loan debt.
The typical expectation for when you have to start payments is 6 months after graduation. Right about now, the December graduates are starting their repayment, and the May graduates can start now as far as thinking, okay, how much should I be setting aside for my student loans? And the best way to do that is to call your servicers, which you can find the information on the National Student Loan Data System, or to use the calculators from the Federal Financial Aid website. It is very typical to have over 10 loans because even if you had one loan per semester, that's 8 loans by itself. Then you have a master's if you have a master's, and more than likely